Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the sponsor experience, measuring the value of Out NICOLE partnerships. My name is Ben Demers. I'm the Senior Associate of Out NICOLE University, and I'll be one of your hosts for today's call. During today's session, we'll be reviewing some of the key benefits of partnership with Out NICOLE in areas including ERG engagement, global reach, and professional development. I'll leave it to my co-host to explain more about this in just a moment, but first, before we get started, there are a few logistical items I want to cover. This is a broadcast audio call being held from 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, meaning you should be able to hear the audio through your computer. If you begin having issues with this during the webinar, please feel welcome to call in to the number provided. And if you have any other logistical issues, just chat in and I'll respond as quickly as possible. We also ask that if you have any questions on the content discussed during today's call, you send them in for our presenters to discuss during the Q&A period at the end of the session. Finally, this webinar will also be recorded, and the recording and slide deck will be shared with all who registered after the call for you to watch again or to share amongst your networks. Now, I'd like to introduce you to my co-host for today's call, the Senior Director of Corporate Engagement here at Out NICOLE, Stephen HUEY. Stephen, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Ben, and welcome everyone. Under the common goal of creating safe and equitable work environments for LGBTQ employees across the globe, my team is dedicated to cultivating, nurturing, and growing lasting partnerships with Fortune 1000 companies and government agencies. Whether your company LGBTQ diversity and inclusion journey is just starting out, or you're in need of a boost, or you're advanced, the goal of the Sponsor Experience webinar is to provide a look at the benefits of sponsorship and help potential partners build a business case for greater participation and company visibility at Summit and beyond. We're honored to welcome 4 sponsors who will speak to the benefits and impact of their sponsor experience in several areas, followed by a Q&A. The first area we'll talk about LGBTQ ERG membership and engagement, and we'll be speaking with Dell. Global LGBTQ diversity and inclusion with JPMorgan Chase, LGBTQ education and training with Aon, and career and professional leadership development with Wells, followed by sponsorship best practices with shared responses from all 4. So let's begin. And our first presenter is Nicole GIBSON. Nikki is a Site Director and North American Lead for Pride Dell Technologies. And Nikki, I'd like to start by asking about LGBTQ ERG membership and engagement. How has Dell's sponsorship of the Out NICOLE Workplace Summit impacted your LGBTQ ERG?
Thank you, Stephen. So this really has been an evolution for Dell over several years. We started sponsoring Summit, I believe, back in 2006. We're now in our 4th year as presenting sponsor, and we've sponsored several events around the globe, 2 executive forums, a roundtable in China, and 3 forums in Brazil. So we're really happy and proud to be sharing with everyone on the call today what this has been for us. Personally, I've been attending Summit since 2008. Initially, our participation was very small. The year I attended, we had, I think, about 11 participants, and we hadn't tested the waters yet with hosting a workshop. Mostly our focus was on how we would divide as a team and conquer to attend as many workshops as we could. It was really after that year that we started thinking about how to get our best bang for our buck, and we focused on 3 areas. How do we best position ourselves as a company to win an award, because we all want to win, right? And how do we best position ourselves as a company to get more attendance? And what best practices we could share to host a workshop. Oh, and matching shirts. That was one thing we needed to figure out too, how to work in our budget to get matching shirts. We were very envious of those. So for those of us who attended Summit over the years, we've all been leaders in our ERG. So at first, our ERG had a very small number of active members, and it was across the United States mostly. We weren't necessarily a formal global ERG yet. It really wasn't until 2016 that we had established Pride chapters globally, and that's when we hosted our first workshop on how to do just that, how to structure an ERG to sustain as a global resource group. My participation on that panel was how to sustain an ERG in the Bible Belt. I am based here in Nashville, Tennessee, and at the time I was the lead for our Tennessee Pride chapter. I shared how it was difficult to get folks to attend internal and external events. It really was difficult for me to get folks engaged. For our chapter specifically, we found a lot of value in turning our focus outside of our Nashville campus to how do we get involved in supporting our local community. I really had to find ways to connect to show how our ERG was going to make a difference on the work that we were doing for the company. In 2006, I joined the Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and we formed partnerships with other LGBT-focused organizations in the community. It's because of my experience at NICOLE that I knew that I had to find a way to show a return on investment that my leaders were making in me to attend Summit and back to Dell for supporting our employee resource groups. That's really how I did it. I made sure that we were engaging and supporting our community locally, and this really helped grow our local membership. Over the last 5 years or so, our local chapter in Tennessee has grown to over 200 members, and this chapter is very active today. We actually had our largest presence at Nashville Pride this past year. So our Pride structure has no doubt evolved over the years, and we owe the thanks to NICOLE to help us in supporting us doing this. So Pride started at Dell back in 2001, and today our North American membership is over 1,200, and globally we have 2,000 members. We have global and regional leads, then leads for our states in the United States and countries in APJ, EMEA, and Latin America. Today I'm the North America lead, and where we have 7 chapters across the United States, and around the globe we have 30 chapters. Most recently we launched in India. Today as a leadership team, we really strive to focus on 4 key areas to show that we're giving back to Dell, because we know that showing the return on investment is important to continue the investment in us. We have leaders who drive initiatives in in areas such as career, commerce, culture, and community. Our initiatives really focus on driving professional development for our members as well as our leaders. We're working hard on initiatives that focus on how we engage and support our customers. We're also ensuring that we are impacting our culture internally by focusing on the right things, like building our first ever newsletter, revising our internal Be Yourself brand to be a global brand that we can use around the world, and then also externally how we're engaging and impacting our communities in which we live, like empowering our team members to advocate in lobby days. Last year at Expo, we learned the power of intersectionality, and now we're partnering with other employee resource groups at Dell to co-host events. Last year we partnered with Gen Next and BNA, our young professionals and Black networking groups, to do a drive for voter registration. So now our summit planning starts really early, shortly after our summit experience. We talk as a leadership team on what workshops we want to host and how we're going to have a bigger summit experience in the following year. We've gone from hosting 1 workshop to submitting 3 this year. With our presenting sponsor, we now have executives who are speakers on the main stage sharing our D&I evolution, and they're participating in panel discussions and roundtables with other executives from other presenting companies like Bank of America, Boeing, and Apple. We've hosted customer happy hours during Summit to bring our customers closer together and to engage with our ERG members to help build relationships. And last year we incorporated a planning session after Summit. As a global team, we wanted to really get together to talk about our experience in the workshops and then what we wanted to bring back to our company. And you'll see on the screen here, we also did our first ever local volunteering effort at Youth Cares, a local LGBT youth organization in Seattle. So really our engagement with NICOLE, it's really infectious. There's nothing like it anywhere else in the world. Attendees leave Summit feeling inspired and energized to bring all the learnings back to their companies. And that's exactly what we've done. We've used the best practices we've heard in workshops on how to grow our ERG, how to ensure that you're investing in your employee resource group to show the return on investment to your company, and so on. Those of us who experience Summit come back and share all the learnings with our leaders, our colleagues, and executives to gain support and participating in sponsoring us in years to come. Today we're presenting sponsor because our company realizes the investment in supporting Out NICOLE because it's really an investment in our people and it's good for our brand.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you so much for that. And now we'll move on to Ken Janssens. And Ken Janssens is Managing Director and LGBT+ Executive Council Co-Chair at JPMorgan Chase, and also the Board Chair of Out NICOLE's Board of Directors. So welcome, Ken. And the question that I'm going to ask you is in respect to global LGBTQ diversity and inclusion. And how has partnering with Out NICOLE been helpful in addressing LGBTQ workplace issues on a global scale? Ken?
Thank you, Stephen. And to everyone, very, very happy to be here. Let me start by answering your question with a simple, very much so. We're a multinational company. We have a presence in over 65 countries. And although our LGBT plus inclusion journey started in the US, we've been very focused for a very long time on extending that journey in everywhere where we do business. And for those of you that work for multinationals, you will appreciate that that's a big challenge for multinationals because there are big cultural differences, there are legal differences, but there is very much a movement towards advancing LGBT equality around the globe. And like Dell, we've been a sponsor of Out NICOLE since 2006. So this 12-year journey has just gone from strength to strength. Like Dell, we initially just sent a few people. Last year that culminated into us sending a delegation of 40 people. And I expect this year when we go to Washington, D.C., that number will grow again because it has every year so. And specifically around LGBT workplace issues on a global scale, over the last few years we've been able to get ERG leaders from our Pride ERG from the following countries have been able to attend. That's been Brazil, that's been Mexico, that's been India, Argentina, the UK, the Philippines, Singapore, Switzerland, and I'm probably forgetting one or two countries that have also been able to go. And for us, the help that Out NICOLE has provided has been in a number of dimensions. At the summit itself, you might not be aware, but there is a Global Leadership Day that actually precedes Summit. That's typically on the Monday, and that is entirely dedicated to global issues. But then even during Summit, there is an entire track for international content. So there's just an incredible amount of workshops and panel discussions that very much focus very specifically on the global kind of dimension. And that could be sometimes a specific workshop on India, or maybe something very specific to Brazil, or maybe it's something regional like that applies to Latin America or just to APAC. The content is incredibly rich. And what I've personally been able to observe in my first summit that I attended was in 2009, and I was based in Brazil at the time. And at the time I was helping to launch our ERG on the ground, and going to Summit and coming back to Summit, going back to Brazil, was like getting a steroid shot in terms of all of the best practices and just so many key learnings. And I've seen that happen. I've been very fortunate to have been to Out NICOLE every year since. And I've firsthand seen when those ERG leaders from those countries that I've just mentioned, when they go, I mean, Summit can be a life-changing experience for most people in the U.S. But when you see someone who, and I've seen one example I can think of, we had one employee who came from India, and it was a very emotional experience for them, because obviously back in India things are nowhere near as advanced as they are in the US. And for them to be, in a huge space with thousands of peers is a really, it cannot be underestimated how impactful that is for them. And they then go back to their respective countries completely fired up, completely equipped with best practices, and it really accelerates their efforts on the ground, and they feel emboldened. But the other thing that I would highlight is that attendance at Summit, at least for JP Morgan, and I believe this to be true for many other companies, has become somewhat of a reward for those ERG leaders. Selection of who gets to go, especially for international attendees, because they obviously have high travel expenses, so the scrutiny around it is really great. But what it does end up happening as a result is we only send the people that have really put in tremendous effort. So in addition to them kind of getting all of these learnings and then bringing that back, it's also very much perceived as a big thank you. So, and the one last thing that I will mention that again I've seen other companies do very much as well, is that many companies will leverage the fact that they've put all of these people on a plane to Summit to be on the ground for a couple of days. And what we do at JP Morgan is we always do a offsite on the sidelines. It's typically the day before Summit starts, where we put all of our ERG leaders together, and it's really the only time on an annual basis where we have so many of our Pride ERG leaders together from across the US but also from around the world, and it really helps us come up with a good agenda for the year ahead. So I cannot speak more highly. One final thing, like Dell as well, we've been very involved with NICOLE on their forums. So in Brazil, for the last 3 years we've been a sponsor there, and that's really helped advance the entire all industries in Brazil. And in India, likewise, that's been really very powerful. So in addition to Summit, you do get these forums as well.
Great. Thank you, Ken. And thank you so much for your investment in your teammates and your partnership with NICOLE as our global leadership partner. We're very proud of that relationship. So thank you very much, Ken.
You're welcome.
Well, next I'd like to welcome Troy Bowtry from Aon, and he is the Integrated Partner Manager and U.S. National Pride Chairman at Aon. And for Troy, the question, Troy, I'm going to ask you is around LGBTQ cultural competency, education, and learning. That's at the core of what we do. The Workplace Summit, Executive Forum, the global events, webinars such as today's. These are really kind of at the core of NICOLE. So how have you worked with NICOLE University to support the educational needs and added value for Aon?
Thank you for that. As you stated, we partnered very closely over the last year with the NICOLE University team and have created a very valuable and comprehensive training series that has been proven to be very valuable for us, the return on investment as well. So ultimately, I lead the U.S. with 7 ERG chapters, 1,500 plus members. And over the last couple of years, as most of our companies know, there's been a true flip to D&I and focusing on what our values are and the strategies that go hand in hand with that. We searched several companies did RFPs on training groups and curriculums to really see who had what we were looking for to continue to build on the momentum that AON has focused on in the last several years from a D&I perspective. By leading with our values at AON and looking at all of the different companies that we were researching, it became eye-opening that Out NICOLE was definitely the one-stop shop to encounter the workplace summit, which is extremely valuable for all the above reasons that were stated from previous individuals on the call. But additionally, the trainings themselves, right? Excuse me. There are webinar trainings. There are monthly webinar trainings. There's tailored specific trainings that Out NICOLE worked directly with myself and other leaders within AON to drive our values and your knowledge into one comprehensive training that has been leveraged globally across AON's offices throughout the world. One key area that we really identified on was obviously the LGBTQ plus side of the business. For us is really making sure that support was given at every angle. We created a 4-part training series that deep dives into all of the LGBTQ plus inclusivity in our workplace and even beyond. With Isabel and Ben supporting, they helped build what we consider a robust training series that has been leveraged across all of our offices. Some of those have now become permanent programs that we will instill that all team members during our new hire onboarding process take those courses prior to, becoming an AON employee fully, to ensure that they understand the values and the strategies that AON has put behind the diversity and inclusion mantle that we hold so strongly here. With just the U.S. alone, all participants have went through Web Series 1, 2, and we are about to conduct number 3 actually later this week. And the discussions that are happening from these trainings and the openness that is helping us to continue to move forward. As earlier stated, being in Atlanta, Georgia, part of the Bible Belt, it's not as easy to really speak about things that may be much easier in a New York City or a Chicago or San Francisco, for an example. So to have been able to leverage all of these different training opportunities that Out NICOLE provides to us has really been truly an underscore of value for AON as a company. We also began in the last few months leveraging your monthly webinars, and these cover broader areas for some of our global offices, like the Asia Pacific areas. Mexico, for example, a few months back, we created our first LGBTQ AON Pride Alliance in Mexico resource group, and we were able to join one of the monthly webinars that was hosted by Out NICOLE, and it really gave a lot of insight for our Mexico counterparts to be able to really define their strategy based off their culture and the way that things are done differently between North America versus Mexico. So the trainings that we have received from Out NICOLE are beyond what we expected, and we will continue our partnership with the Out NICOLE team in building additional trainings in person, as well as the webinars that we currently are leveraging as well. So for us at AON, this has truly been an exciting and great partnership. It has just begun as of last year, and the return on investment is already there for us. So from now and moving forward, Out NICOLE will be a standing partner with AON.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you so much. And now we move on to Tamara Peterson. And Tamara is the Managing Counsel and Enterprise President of the Pride Team Member Network at Wells. And we're thrilled to have Tamara speak about professional leadership development and career impact. So Tamara, how has Wells Fargo's partnership with Out and Equal positioned you as a leader and impacted your career at Wells?
Thanks so much, Stephen. And I just want to say first, thanks for asking Wells Fargo to join in this discussion. We really value our relationship with Out and Equal, both as an institution, but also individually as participants in the programming. And as I thought about, the various aspects of how Out and Equal has really contributed to my personal career development, there were 4 key areas that stood out that I want to focus on. First, I think the opportunities that are presented to attend conferences and seminars for my personal professional development, things like the summit or the executive forum or even just the ongoing webinars, they all provide a really targeted opportunity to focus on personal leadership skills as well as education that's relevant to the LGBTQ community and workplace issues that we're facing. I found the programming to be really varied and often particularly topical to current events, which is helpful when we're thinking about how to address those issues that are coming up. And for me, I think the exposure to a series of compelling speakers over the course of the conferences in particular have provided me with many moments for personal reflection about being a thoughtful and passionate leader, being more self-aware about my own privilege, and really providing opportunities for me to receive concrete ideas for enhancing my personal leadership skills, all of which I think make me a better manager for my team in my day job, right, and as a leader overall, for both my day job and my network leadership role. The second area I want to focus on is really education about best practices in new concepts, how to most effectively lead an employee resource group. So things like inspiring our ERG members and other leaders, persuading company leaders when we need to advocate for a change. Those things are absolutely things that I think about when I attend the various programming that's offered by Out and Equal. And I think the summit in particular is a place for me that sparks innovation and allows me to come back to our network and really challenge our thinking and hopefully motivate others through the learnings that I have, that members of our other members of our extended team and leadership have that attend, particularly in this space. I think the learnings that are there provide an opportunity to demonstrate leadership that can be more broadly impactful to our enterprise's overall diversity and inclusion program, because all of our employee resource groups share information and learning among each other. And I think that's fairly common within a lot of the organizations that sponsor Out and Equal and likely that are thinking about deepening their relationship today. The third area that I think about from a personal development standpoint are really opportunities that are provided through this partnership to collaborate and connect with other leaders to enhance my personal network, and also to have some really specific conversations about how I can leverage others' learnings as a key development opportunity for me. So thinking about fresh approaches to an issue, for example, looking at expanding our ERGs globally, or maybe developing an India chapter, as I know a couple of others have spoken about, or thinking about how a peer, and particularly here an industry peer, maybe was able to advance an issue. Those things all help me build my personal toolkit to increase the likelihood that I can find a path to success when we're bringing issues forward. And here I have to say, industry connections can be especially important. I know Ken and I have talked about that several times, and I'm sure many on the phone can relate to this or attending today's webinar. A little friendly competition among industry peers can really help provide some additional motivation to move organizations to action. And I know Ken's description that I like so well is, referencing the currency of peer activity. It really does matter to a lot of our organizations and is important for benchmarking and I think helping us to really look at how we move workplace equality forward in a broad sense. Lastly, I just would want to highlight the opportunities to develop and present sessions or participate in discussions like this are really important, I think, from a personal development standpoint. Developing and presenting sessions offers so many opportunities for personal learning about the content, about creating a compelling presentation or a session, and really about leading courageous conversations overall. There are also key opportunities that help provide visibility for me personally. They provide visibility for Wells Fargo. And I think thought leadership is a really important way in which companies can give back to our communities, sharing those learnings to help the collective whole move ahead is so critically important for the advancement of our issues in a really broad sense. And I think in acknowledging these benefits to the company, that's important that those benefits exist, but it's equally important to draw out that these opportunities for individual professional development exist. That's also really good, right? For every company, developing leaders is crucial for their ongoing success. And having the chance to lead in this way really helps demonstrate some key leadership skills from my perspective. So I'll just say, Stephen, to sum it up, I think I'm a better leader for having had the opportunities to learn and present through our partnership with NICOLE, and no doubt many of my peers feel the same way.
Thank you, Tamara. I really appreciate hearing, around your own personal commitment and development, and of course leading the way for Wells to partner with NICOLE. And I'm going to switch over to asking you the next question, which is about sponsorship best practices. And as you mentioned, ERG leaders and their members, they've historically been the true stewards and advocates, not only for their company, the work being done in their company, but also for NICOLE. And many ERGs, they still face challenges securing sponsorships for the Workplace Summit, limits participation, company visibility. What were your obstacles and the actions taken to get to the point that you are now at on behalf of Wells?
Sure. So, our sponsorship has lasted, has now for 13 years. So I was not around as much in the beginning when that sponsorship started. So I've done a little partnering to learn some of those obstacles, and then I can talk a bit about the way that that's evolved for us. I think the most practical obstacle for us is really figuring out where the budget for this sponsorship should live within our organization. Is it a function of marketing or HR, or does it belong in diversity and inclusion or philanthropy? And responsibility bounced around over the years in all those groups, but eventually ended up most recently, and I think now for many years, has sort of found a comfortable home in the diversity and inclusion space, which for us ties to, really nicely to that organizational focus on building inclusivity in the workplace. I would note, though, that as we plan for our summit experience, we have a cross-functional core team that works to bring our presence to life that touches really in all those spaces, because we want to make sure that we're sort of hitting all the right notes when we're attending things like Summit. One of the key steps we took to really continue to secure funding was to define our objectives for participating in the Summit. So initially, our goals were a little bit ad hoc. We were trying to figure out what this presence looked like for us. But several years ago, we were really able to narrow it down and focus on two important objectives. First, developing promising leaders from our team member network. And then secondly, externally sharing our journey as a company that's committed to our LGBTQ team members and our customers and communities. We really wanted to focus on the idea of sharing so that other companies could benefit from what we've learned along the way as well. And I think those concise objectives helped in a couple of major areas. First, they really helped us focus on figuring out who should attend and what our workshop participation should include. So on that participation front, like JP Morgan Chase, we identify our network leaders at an enterprise level as well as across our chapters, and really we look to identify participants that have been highly engaged leaders, really the people we would say are our emerging leaders, who we want to bring to Summit with us to get something out of it for their own development, and also to help them be more effective in leading our network. And then thinking through what that workshop participation looks like, and thinking about the place where we have an idea to share a story that was a learning for us, share best practices that maybe have developed, or explore collectively issues that are facing members of our community. Those are all things that we have focused on in recent years. I think, one of the parts of your question, Stephen, is about obstacles. And for us, I think our journey would likely have been a little easier if we had been crisper a little earlier about our objectives. But our leadership has always seen the benefit of supporting Out and Equal overall. And so I think that's been really helpful. Just, helping to identify some really concrete takeaways that you're after, I think, can help in building the sponsorship business case. And then lastly, I would just say, from a involvement with Out and Equal perspective, I think when we've had the opportunity to have leaders participate on the board with Out and Equal, that's something that I think absolutely can help smooth the process within an organization to deepen those relationships as they're being established. So those are some of our tips for helping to build the sponsorship business case.
Great. Thanks, Tamara. That's really valuable. And I like how clear and strategic the objectives have been in setting the partnership, especially at Summit. Thank you, Tamara. And now I would like to introduce Violeta. Violeta DUDOVA is Vice President of Talent and Diversity at JPMorgan Chase. And so, Violeta, the same question: what best practices can you share about building our partnership over the years?
Thank you, Stephen. And I'm glad that you are the one asking me this question, because I think my journey with Out and Equal has been with you, and you've advised us through the years on improving our process. So one thing I wanted to mention, and I don't want to repeat the things that are very similar between our story and the story that was previously shared, in terms of our leadership seeing the value, in terms of the overall corporate sponsorship, in terms of the value of the workshops and the board seats. All of that is valid for us as well. So what I'm going to focus a little bit more about is what our process is and what we did differently over the years in terms of increasing our numbers, right? Because when we talk about corporate sponsorship, board seats, even the workshop, a lot of these decisions are top-down decisions. But when it comes to individual employees attending the conference, it's very typical, I think, for most organizations that seat is paid by the employee's cost center. And that's where our struggle was a number of years ago. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth in that story in terms of the process that we structured around it to help us increase our numbers of participants. So as Ken mentioned, at JPMorgan Chase, we've seen the value of Out and Equal for our employees and our BRG and our diversity and HR professionals since 2006. We've been attending the conference, but it was actually in 2014 that we looked very closely at our internal process for selecting nominations and approvals, right, how we do the approval process for the conference. And that helped us increase our numbers. So the way that our process worked before that time, before 2014, was quite decentralized. Our Pride BRG would send out a nomination form. Individual employees will take that form and they will have a conversation with their manager. There was some language in the form, right, that would help them explain to their managers the value of NICOLE and why it's important and why they should be approved to attend the conference and so forth. Our numbers back in those days when it was decentralized were around 20. So in 2014, 2013, we used to send anywhere between 16 to 20 employees. And after we centralized our process to a top-down approval process, our numbers through the years steadily grew to about 50 people last year in 2018. And as Ken mentioned, we anticipate these numbers to continue to grow through the years. So in terms of, what is this top-down process that we put in place, we now work, in 2014, we worked, it's a combination of our diversity professionals, our HR folks, and our Pride BRG. Our Pride BRG nominates leaders. The number of leaders, so each chapter gets to nominate the leader. The number of people per chapter that go depend on the size of the chapter, so anywhere from 1 for a smaller chapter to 3 to 4 participants from our larger chapters. And this includes, of course, like Ken mentioned, chapters that are international, so it's a global process. And so once these names are, once we have this list of names, right, the list of names is then sent from the top down, and this is the difference. So it's not an individual employee, but it's a top-down approach where managers are asked through their HR and their business leaders to please approve these BRG leaders for attendance to the NICOLE conference. And so from there on, there is a recognition process that is coming top-down. There is an approval process, right, that is centralized. It is much more efficient than what we used to have in the past. And one other thing I want to mention here is that when the employee receives the message from their manager, it's actually a message from their manager, and there is a huge element of recognition for the amazing work that our Pride BRGs do here at JP Morgan Chase. So instead of the employee going hand in hand and asking for this, right, it is a recognition from the top, and they're invited to attend the NICOLE conference. So the majority of our numbers come from our Pride BRG leaders attending the conference, but we also have LGBT Executive Council members that attend the conference. We have HR representatives. Recruiting comes with us. Supplier diversity comes with us to the conference, as well as we also have, of course, other employees that might not be Pride BRG members or supplier diversity or recruiting that can also attend the conference. So that is how, that was basically the one thing, that thinking about numbers specifically through the years that has helped us build up our participation from our Pride BRG. The value proposition that we used for when we addressed this, right, and talked about this with our senior leadership was very similar to what was mentioned in the previous story. We wanted to make sure that our Pride BRG is really well represented from each of our chapters in North America and globally. So things like, we wanted to make sure that the learning is focused with the leaders that can truly be impactful and bring the learnings back to the organization and be able to translate out the NICOLE learnings into strategies for the firm and for their local Pride members. So overall, I mean, this is really again our story. Stephen, you've been a big part of this story, so again, would like to thank you for your good advice through the years, and always have found your advice so very helpful around this.
Thank you, Violeta. And thanks for the detailed overview kind of the evolution of our partnership. So thank you for that. And Nikki from Dell, could you tell us a little bit about any challenges as well and what you've had to do to secure sponsorship?
Absolutely. I'm happy to share. And I echo some of the past presenters' remarks and their obstacles. We've had something very similar with us. Our biggest obstacle, I believe, has always been around getting the support from a dollar standpoint. And it's not necessarily because of the partnership in that not being valued, excuse me, but because we have a lot of opportunities to sponsor a lot of partners at Dell. One moment, please. Sorry, my allergies. It's allergy season in Tennessee and everything's blooming. So for us, it's really been around the multiple opportunities to sponsor for Dell. So for us, specifically for Pride, it's been, kind of looking at the total return on investment to support partnerships. So like Out NICOLE, HRC, and then how do we fund local Pride initiatives like Pride festivals and whatnot. So we've really had to kind of take a look at what was the best return on investment for us. And while HRC is very important, Pride festivals and things like that, and supporting Pride initiatives locally in the United States and around the globe, these are all very important. For us, it's really been our partnership with Out NICOLE that we've had the most return on investment for. And it's really very similar to what Violeta and Tamara have shared. I mean, it's really been about the total return on investment. So it's, participating in forums. It's having the opportunity to speak and share best practices as a company. It's been, all of the learnings and opportunities to participate in webinars like the one we're in today, and other learning opportunities through the university. So really when you look at the total return on investment, the decision was quite easy for us. And really, it was then going to our local DNR team to support, to ask for their partnership and their support in the sponsorship for Out NICOLE. So it was really going to them and helping them to show us and articulate the return on the investment, and then giving that back to our businesses because we know that it's our businesses that support us in doing things like this. Also, I think it's been really important for us to ensure that we have a sponsor that has the ability to support us and doesn't mind funding Pride initiatives. So for us, our executive sponsor is Eric Day, and Eric is a vice president and a general manager for our small business group. Eric does have some budget that he can share with Pride. He has some discretion over how he spends his budget. So it's been helpful for us as an ERG organization to have Eric as our executive sponsor, because he helps fund some of the things that we need to fund or would like to fund that we just can't use our D&I budget for. So that's been very important for us. But again, I think we've all kind of talked about this. The real key is to show the return on investment back to the business. Out NICOLE, you all have really helped us in doing that with everything all the support that you've given us over the years and in our partnership. So we've really been able to articulate that back to our business and our D&I teams to help support us. I think today probably our biggest obstacle is it's really a good one to have. It's more about how do we get everyone to Summit. With our sponsorship level, we have registrations, and last year we had our largest team ever to go to Out NICOLE. We had like 43 people there, which is huge for Dell. We started with a very small number attending, and we're now at 43. And every one of those 43 folks have already reached out and said, I want to go to Summit this year. How do I get there? So, I think we're going to have to come up with a very standardized process, very similar to what maybe JP Morgan and Chase is doing, but it's really a nomination process possibly, to ensure that we can get everyone there who should be there. So it's a good position to be in. It's a good obstacle to have this year, and it's it's really about that return on investment. Everyone realizes how important it is to participate in Summit and how to be a partner with NICOLE. And I do think that now our businesses really see that, and our D&I teams, they see that as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Nicole. And take a look at some questions that may have come in, and so I'll turn it over to Ben.
Sure. So I think the first question that I'd love to hear is somebody saying they see the value of the Workplace Summit as a professional development opportunity, but not so much as a place for marketing. So can you talk a bit about how you've seen your company's brand prosper as a result of your partnership with ONE? And so any of our partners on the line who'd like to take that question?
Hi, this is Nikki. I'm happy to share a little bit about what I believe has helped us. Mostly it's been obviously the presence in sharing our best practices. Some of the workshops that we've done over the last several years have really helped us in sharing some best practices, like our transgender toolkit. I think that's one of the biggest things that stands out for me that's helped us with our brand. We've had the opportunity to do the workshop several years ago. Then we did a virtual workshop last year that dove a little bit deeper into how our how our support for our transgender team members, how that transition support works. So we've had opportunities to do that. And then I think also from a brand standpoint, with our booth has evolved over the years. Initially, we were focused on what swag item we were going to give away, and how were we going to share about career opportunities. And last year, we did those things. We still talked about the swag items, and we still talked about what was going to be, how many folks from our talent acquisition team could participate to help get folks knowledge about what career openings we have. But then we also have, our booth has evolved. We've had products where we've displayed products like our virtual reality booth we did a couple years ago. This past year, our booth, we had lines around our booth, everyone wanting to get an avatar done that's been done with our product on our art monitors and whatnot. I don't know specifically what they're called. I'm not in sales, but I think from a brand standpoint, it's been very fruitful for us. And we've really taken the opportunity of having the booth and sharing our products and services at our booth. And I think that that's been very beneficial for us.
Yeah, definitely. We have another question coming in here asking, what roles do your respective ERGs play in university recruiting or early talent development, since this is something that's very important to my company. So would anybody else want to touch on this question?
So this is Tamara from Wells. I will say I think we're there to help support some of the recruiting efforts from a network perspective for our ERG. But with respect to being able to work on early development, a lot of what our focus is overall is professional development for our team members, right? So we're looking to build an inclusive environment within the company, but also then for our members very specifically looking at giving them opportunities for developing their own professional sort of pathing, whether it's having difficult conversations or speed networking. Our network overall looks at those various opportunities for focus. And I think one of the great things about our partnership with NICOLE is being able to come to this significant gathering of other like-minded organizations and hear what others are doing in this space to help develop their team members. It's a great opportunity for us to sort of, consider what's out there that maybe we haven't thought about or haven't offered previously, or for us to be able to offer our experiences like our Diverse Leaders program that we offer at Wells, which is a 3-day intensive program for members of the LGBTQ segment We offer it for some other segments as well, but it's really been held up as a model learning opportunity and a way to develop team members into, stronger leaders, stronger professionals, and having that opportunity to do that with others who share this diversity characteristic is more impactful than I think anyone realizes when they sign up for that program. So that's just a little bit about how we leverage that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Tamara. I think we have time for one more question, and so maybe you can pose this to Ken or Violeta from JP Morgan. So somebody asking, Workplace Summit can be a really large investment for new companies. How do you suggest that they engage with O&E at Summit if it's their first year there?
So that's an interesting. So that's that is an interesting question because I wasn't there at the beginning, but my 2 cents on this is if it's your first year engaging with NICOLE, you're there to learn in that first year. Again, my talk with Stephen and the NICOLE team because they're very knowledgeable and very experienced and can help you on that journey. And certainly feel free to reach out to us and to the other companies that are veterans in this, and I'm happy to talk to you and offer help and share our best practices with you.
Yeah, and
Ken, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say, I think Del made a good point earlier. Your first summit, you try and attend as many of the workshops. You kind of divide and conquer. It's all about learning, navigating, making connections, maybe with companies that are business partners of yours, and go from there. I think the first year is all about just taking it in, and it's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a common experience. I think we're coming to the end of our hour here today, so I do want to take a final moment to thank all of our presenters again for joining us on today's call. These are partnerships that we truly value, so it's been very useful to hear kind of all of your experiences and take those experiences and use them to improve partnerships moving forward. So we really appreciate hearing from all of you here on the call. The last thing I want to do is just share our contact information if anybody does want to reach out about any of the particular things we spoke about on today's call. So you can reach us for sponsorship inquiries at partnerships@outnicole.org, for training or education at university@outnicole.org, and then for any global questions about our global programming, you can reach out at global@outnicole.org. So with that, if you do have any questions, feel welcome to reach out to us, and thank you all for joining us on today's call.